I just like to sing.
Hold on. I'm out to open a whole new home. So let me call back home.
You got the notification? Alright. Tribute to Cosmic Peace. In war times, this is a follow-up to the video that I did Dr. York teaching that was a physical person, and that was just something done as a little prelude to what we're going to be talking about tonight, which is this show is titled The Scientific Identity in Ancient and Modern Times, and the kin A-Noot Boonoo, the bone marrow Noopooh, will be speaking for the majority of the session. And you know, I'm just gonna co-host. If I need to throw something in there, I will. We wanna dedicate this show to a kin that had passed over the weekend. We just found out today that we lost a kin, so I wanted to send a true mental peace to the elder Noopooh, also known as Noopooh, and I do anything you want to say on that before we get moving?
True peace to the audience out there. I'm hearing a little echo.
Yeah, hold on. Try now.
Yeah, true peace to the audience out there, to all the kins and the friends of the African race. Definitely want to send my condolences to the family of Noopooh, passed away this weekend. This is very sad news because I know that this kin in particular was working on his health and things like that. I don't really know the nature of him passing away, so I can't I can't just guess or make an assumption of what has happened. But I know that a lot of the African people in our race, as of lately, has been passing away from these heart failures, all these circulatory issues. And myself in particular, it's hitting me a lot, because right now I'm working on some things to really get our health in order, and hopefully it can come faster than normal speed, and get to our kids and our race, so that we can start to do the right thing and really enhance the brain of gods, which reside in us already, and also they reside outside of us as well. And if we get our health together, we'll be able to connect a little better with the cosmos and things of that nature. But my deepest condolences to Rainy Ray, also known as Riku Belu Noopooh, and I hope that his family and they can find some some kind of comfort in knowing that he left a legacy of health, and that was one of his main things, was to really get the health thing popping. So we're definitely going to continue that particular legacy of health, whether it be mental health or whether it be physical health or spiritual health. So I hope that we can move forward and heal our race mentally, spiritually, and physically. And that's just basically what I'm going to say about that particular situation.
All right, Ken. So if you're ready to start your presentation, then you can go ahead and
bring. And the first order of business is, let me know if you see that screen, Ken.
All right, give me a second. Okay, you got the Noot off of Wikipedia.
Correct. Now, this has been the topic of discussion, as of lately, between Noopoohs and Nawapians, especially in the Nawapian books. Can you pull that up real quick, Ken? I know you trying to step off to the side, but just to show them in the plagiarized book where they're showing that brain newts is in reference to this particular goddess in ancient Egypt, and we're going to prove this to be false. All right. So, but I'm gonna talk while you get that picture ready. So this particular goddess in ancient times, the Nawapians tried to say is brain newts, and I'm going to show beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Noot or Noot in ancient Egypt is not brain newts, without a shadow of a doubt. So after this video, they should stop calling Noot, the ancient Egyptian goddess, brain newts. After that, the conversation is going to be over after tonight. You ready to share yours? All right. So let me end my screen sharing. All right. Now you pull yours up. There it is. All right. So they're saying that Noot is newts. All right. Also, I think York in his book, the what's that book called, the Holy Tablets, he had Noot up there, the goddess Noot as well. So, but he didn't refer to her as brain newts because they didn't get to those nature books yet. The nature books were fairly new at that point in time, and I don't think York had got to the nature books at that particular time. But let's dive into who Noot is, or the goddess Noot. All right. So I'm gonna screen share real quick.
What we're dealing with. If those who seen my last video, is Noot. Did Dr. York teach Noot?
Alright.
I'm back. Yeah, I would just doing a little something real quick. So again, when you do a basic research on Noot or Nuit, the basic things that come up, the different spellings, talk about the goddess of the sky. It's shown as a woman or a cow with black or midnight blue skin, etc. This just the basic information that even those who translated the information what they do get is what you will see here. Some of it is different from different things. Nocturnal night, equinox, all of these different little things. But if you read and when you do your research, none of this has nothing to do with the brain or brain news, as Nawapians are now trying to jump on the train while it's trying to basically jump on the train, hijack the train, and steer it a whole nother way, repaint it, and put York name all on it. So this whole thing is, again, it's not just aimed toward them. It's actually to correct a lot of the misinformation that's put out there, and the reason why it's misinformation, because a lot of it, again, it's just like how we talk right now amongst each other, and then hundreds and hundreds of years later, they come upon, English or whatnot, and they translate the basic English vernacular, the way the English words are pronounced. And certain way we talk to each other, they just not gonna understand all of the basic stuff that come with that. Because then you got what's called slang, and people got their own talks within their own groups and stuff like that. So the foundation of what they're saying about all of the Egyptian stories, just for the lack of a better term, are actually founded. It can be explained in modern day terms. And I just wanted to say for the record that we do not agree with Brother Jabari that most of the stories of ancient Egypt and abroad are mythological. That's totally not true, and I hope whoever taught him that definitely need to change the direction of where they're teaching, because those stories are not mythological, and they're not some of them, again, you get into anthropomorphic when they start personifying these particular forces and the universal functions into persons and animals and stuff like that. But I knew if you read it, I'm gonna just get on out of the way.
Yeah, let me just end your screen share, and let me try to do mine now. All right. Does the whole thing pop up now?
I can see it that it's ready to show. Okay, there you go.
All right, so the whole thing came up. All right, cool. Let's get the ball rolling. All right, so we see now that Noot, like Tanu was just explaining to you guys, is the sky goddess. But we're gonna read from Wikipedia what Noot is. Noot, ancient Egyptian Noot, also known by various other transcriptions, is the goddess of the sky in the Ennead of ancient Egypt religion. She was seen as a star-covered nude woman arching over the earth as a cow. I need you guys to keep in mind everything that you're seeing and how she's personified. Remember, she's personified as a cow. I think one of her other names was Hathor as well. So just keep that in mind. Alright. Pronunciations of ancient Egyptian is uncertain because of the vowels were long omitted from its writing, although her name often includes the unpronounced determinative hieroglyph for the sky. Her name Noot of itself, also meaning sky, is usually transcribed as Nut, but also sometimes appears in older sources as Nunet, Munet, Nonet, and Nut. Alright? So I want you guys to just keep in mind right here who Nut is. Okay? So we're gonna move on now to some images of Nut. I'm gonna move on to another image. Let me know if you guys see it. So you see that image with her arching with the stars in her? It's a whole different screen now. Do you see that screen? All right, great. So this is from ancient Egypt, ancient Egypt online.co.uk. All right, and we see Noot being arched over these particular gods with her two arms facing forward and her two legs in the back, and she has stars within her body. And at the bottom of this, it says she was a cow goddess who adopted some of the attributes of Hathor. When Ra became tired of ruling, she up into the heavens on her back in the form of a cow. However, she generally takes the form of a naked woman covered with stars, holding her body up in arch, facing downwards. Her arms and legs are the pillars of the sky, and hands and feet were thought to touch the ground at the four cardinal points on the horizon. Geb is often depicted beneath her, sometimes, I don't even know that word, I'm not even going to pronounce it. You guys see it. She was just portrayed as a woman wearing one of the hieroglyphs that made up her name, a round Egyptian pot. All right, let's go down a little further. Because of her role in the rebirth of the sun, she became a mother-like protector of the dead, who was often painted on the inside lid of the sarcophagus, protecting the mummy. Her symbols, a wooden maquette, which is a ladder charm, was placed inside the tomb to help the deceased climb to the heavens. There were many festivals to Noot through the year, including the festival of Noot and Ra and the feast of Noot, and she appears in numerous depictions, yet no temples or specific cult centers are linked to her. All right, so I want you guys to keep this particular image in mind. Now I'm going to show you guys who Noot is supposed to be and why they call her the cow goddess, and why we see the four limbs being outstretched over these particular gods and giving birth to these particular sons and gods. Here we go. We about first spell we about to break. You see that, Tanu? That article, Milky Way galaxy has 4 spiral arms, new study confirms. All right. Noot is supposed to be our universal nebula. Now, we're going to get to what a nebula is in a minute. And we're going to go back to what Noot is. Noot is I'm going to tell you the answer. Noot is the nebula. And I'm going to have, I'm going to play a YouTube channel which is going to explain to you guys what the nebula is. But I want you guys to keep in mind the 4 spiral arms. All right. So this is a 12-year study that was published by these particular scientists. Monthly notices of the Royal Astronomical Society has confirmed that our Milky Way galaxy has 4 spiral arms, following years of debate that it only has 2. All right, so Noot is what? The cow goddess. What do we know cows to produce? Milk. This is where our galaxy gets its name from. It comes from Noot, because Noot is the cow goddess. She represents the nebula that helped to form our galaxy. So our ancient ancestors understood cosmology way before what we're studying today, because as you can see, only in 2013 they were having this debate about if it had 4 arms or not. Our ancient ancestors thousands of years ago already knew that Noot had 4 limbs. They call it 4 spiral arms, but these arms we know are limbs of the particular galaxy. But we know that nebulas help to form galaxies, because nebulas and galaxies are different from each other. A nebula is basically a cloud of gas before suns are formed. So there's no light necessarily in a nebula. And we can actually go back now, hold on, to what a nebula is. But before we get to that, I want to get through this article. The Milky Way is our galactic home, and studying its structure gives us a unique opportunity to understand how a very typical spiral galaxy works in terms of where stars are born and why, said co-author Professor Melvin Hoare from the University of Leeds. All right, so you guys could go read this for yourself, and you can see that they just figured out that our galaxy had 4 spiral arms. So she is the representation of our Milky Way galaxy. That's why she's known as the cow goddess, because she is our Milky Way galaxy, and she's hovering over us. She's protecting her creations. If you look at the image again, she's protecting her creations on the inside, the same way these arms are protecting the inside of the creations. You understand what I'm saying? So it's very important to see that this particular galaxy and Noot are the same exact thing. Now I'm going to play a video real quick so you guys can understand what a nebula is. Do you see that, Ken? The YouTube video that I pulled up? You see the YouTube video? Alright, hold on. I'm going to screen share the YouTube video real quick. Give me 1 second, folks. And Geb just represents basically part of the matter, because part of the matter and part of the planets that are being created as a nebula creates suns, planets, and satellites. Because Geb represents the Earth God, So because he represents the Earth God, he's the representation of planets throughout the Milky Way galaxy. So she is a representation of this Milky Way galaxy, and we're gonna show you guys in Noone where she represents this particular nebula. But let me screen share my the video to show you guys real quick. One second. Where is the let me close this down. Give me 1 second, folks. Alright, YouTube. There we go. It's not popping up yet, but give me 1 second, folks. But I hope you guys see where I'm making the link that Noot is indeed a nebula. She's not the, she's one of the creators of the Milky Way galaxy. Oh, here we go. Beautiful. Let me know if you see the YouTube screen, Ken. Alright, great. We're gonna play this real quick so you guys can see it. Somehow it's trying to load up.
Easy when we talk to the public. I may be biased, but I think astronomy is the most beautiful of all sciences.
Is it playing?
Sure, other fields of science have lots of eye candy, but all I have to do is pull out a shot of Saturn and I win because Saturn. It's all gorgeous. Planets, moons, stars, clusters. But of all of them, you just can't beat a nebula. Why? Because nebulae. Nebula is Latin for cloud, and for once in astronomy, we have a name that actually describes the object accurately. Nebulae are clouds of gas and dust in space. I've already talked about them a bit. For example, stars form from nebulae. Our sun did about 4.6 billion years ago. When a medium-sized star dies, it blows off winds of gas, then lights them up as the white dwarf core of the star is revealed, creating a planetary nebula. Also, when a high-mass star explodes, it catastrophically vaporizes itself, becoming a violently expanding cloud of gas. Nebulae are literally part of the births, lives, and deaths of stars. So, besides being beautiful, they're also pretty versatile. There are a lot of ways of categorizing nebulae. One way is by how we see them. For example, if a cloud of gas is blasted by light from a nearby massive star, the gas in it becomes excited. The electrons in its atoms jump up to a higher energy level. When the electrons drop back down, they emit light. The gas glows, and we call this an emission nebula. The color of an emission nebula depends on the gas in it and how hot it is. Hydrogen, for example, glows most strongly in the red, and we see that color in most emission nebulae. Oxygen tends to glow green, but to a lesser extent it gives off blue light too. Other elements span the spectrum in colors they give off, and these colors aren't limited to visible light. Hydrogen can emit infrared and even radio light, and if it's energized enough, it'll emit in the ultraviolet too. That's true for many elements. Although most emission nebulae look substantial, they're actually incredibly tenuous. A typical density in a gas nebula is only a few thousand atoms per cubic centimeter. Mind you, in the air you breathe, there are about 10 to the 19 atoms per cubic centimeter, 1,000 trillion times denser than a typical nebula. Really, a nebula is barely more than a vacuum. The reason they look so cloudy is that they're big. Really, really big. A decent-sized nebula is several light years in diameter, and that's a lot of centimeters. That much gas adds up, and so some nebulae can be pretty bright. While emission nebulae glow due to their own light, reflection nebulae are bright because, can you guess? They reflect the light of nearby bright, massive stars. In this case, though, the nebula isn't made of gas, but is instead mostly dust. And I don't mean like the hair and skin flake dust bunnies you find under your couch either. When astronomers talk about dust, they mean tiny grains, a micron across. Just so you know, a human hair is 100 times wider than that. These tiny grains contain things like silicates, aluminum oxide, and calcium. And in many cases, this dust is laced with complex molecules called polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. Well, I love that fancy name for them. You might know them better as soot. Yep, when you light a match, you're pretty much making some of the same stuff that lurks between the stars. Dust doesn't emit visible light, but it can affect the visible light from stars if they're inside the dust cloud or nearby. Turns out, dust is very good at scattering light. That means that when light hits it, the light gets sent off in some other direction. This scattering is highly wavelength dependent, so blue light is scattered very strongly, while red light can go right through. We saw this in the last episode. The dust surrounding the Pleiades star cluster is a reflection nebula. The light from the stars in the Pleiades is scattered by the nearby dust, and the blue light gets sent in every direction, including toward us. The red light doesn't scatter nearly as well, so we don't see it. It never gets sent toward us. Thick dust is also very good at absorbing visible light. If a star is embedded in enough dust, the light from it is dimmed considerably. If the cloud is dense enough or big enough, the dust can completely extinguish the light seen from a star. At the same time, if the dust is at the right density, the blue light from a star inside a dust cloud gets scattered, while the red light can get through. This effect reddens starlight, and in some dust clouds it provides a striking view. Stars outside the cloud look normal enough, but closer in they get redder and then fade out entirely. The result is a fuzzy, red-edged hole in space. Pretty cool. You can see that effect in Barnard 68, a small dust cloud, just half a light year in size. These are also sometimes called molecular clouds. They're cold enough that atoms can stick together to form molecules. Their cores can be hundreds of degrees below 0 Celsius. Some dust clouds like this are relatively small, but others can get downright huge. We call these giant molecular clouds because why not? These can be incredibly massive, with thousands or hundreds of thousands of times the mass of the sun, and stretch for hundreds of light years. And that brings us to one of the most glorious objects in the sky, the Orion Nebula. This is an emission nebula located just below Orion's belt. It's actually a naked-eye object visible in modestly dark skies. It looks like a star by eye, but even binoculars reveal it to be fuzzy, and through a telescope or with long exposure images, you get unmitigated majesty. The Orion Nebula is a star-forming factory. A bunch of stars have been born in it. Some of them are very massive and incredibly luminous.
Keep in mind, folks, keep in mind, I just paused the video for a second. Look at that definition. The Orion Nebula is a star-forming factory. A bunch of stars have been born in it. Some of them are very massive and luminous. What is the definition? What's the definition of Noot? Noot, she creates stars. She is where Ra is born again. So she is a nebula. You understand what I'm saying? We're going to get to the fact that she's not brain Noots itself, but I want you guys to understand that our ancients knew who Noot was. Noot was the nebula. She is the star-forming factory. She is the producer of stars, which is the nebula. But let's continue the video.
The entire nebula is lit by 4 stars located in its heart, collectively called the trapezium. These are 4 brutes, huge, brilliant stars that are each far more massive than the sun. Their light is so fierce it illuminates the entire nebula, which is about 20 light years across. And here's a funny thing about Orion. What you're seeing is not just a gas cloud in space. It's actually just a bubble sitting on the edge of a much, much larger molecular cloud, hundreds of light years across. That cloud is cold and dark, and so we don't see it by eye. The trapezium stars formed inside that cloud, very near the edge. When they turned on, fusing hydrogen into helium, they started blasting out a mind-numbing amount of ultraviolet light, which began eating away at the gas and dust. Eventually, they blew a hole in the side of the cloud, like a weak spot in a bicycle tire blowing out. What we see as the magnificent Orion Nebula is just a dimple, a cavity in the side of the cloud, filled with gas heated to glowing by the stars. There are still stars forming there today, too. I mean, literally, right now. We can see it happening. In episode 9, I talked about the solar system and how it starts off as a flattened disk of gas and dust. When we look at the Orion Nebula with Hubble, we see those disks. They're called protoplanetary disks, and they're so dense that they absorb almost all the light from the stars forming inside them, so they're dark, and we see them in silhouette against the brighter gas of the nebula, unless you look in the infrared. That kind of light can pierce the dark disk, and when we use infrared telescopes, we can see the protostars forming in the centers of those disks. Take a good look. Those are baby stars, literally stars that are forming right this very minute. They're still hot due to their contraction, but in a few million years, they'll ignite fusion in their cores and become real stars. They'll blow away the remaining material around them, revealing themselves, and perhaps any planets orbiting them as well. In fact, once stars start forming inside a nebula, its days are numbered. The Eagle Nebula is another star factory, with active starbirth going on inside of it. Some of these are massive luminous stars and give off so much ultraviolet light, it erodes away at the surrounding nebula in a process called photoevaporation. However, dense knots of material forming new stars can resist that erosion better and protect the material behind them, in essence shadowing it. This results in long fingers of material we see in silhouette against the hotter gas, like sandbars in a stream. Observing their infrared light, we can also see the stars embedded inside them. There are several of these giant towers in the Eagle Nebula, 3 of which have been called the Pillars of...
Hold on. I want you guys to see that particular...
stars embedded inside them.
That particular definition. Observing the infrared light, we can also see stars embedded inside them. When we look at Noot hovering over Geb and the other gods, what do we see embedded inside of Noot? We see stars embedded inside of her. You see, our ancient ancestors knew of these things prior to what they're teaching today. They are now learning these things. But let's keep it moving. I just want you guys to be familiar with certain terms and words and things that they're using and not get confused. Our ancient ancestors knew exactly what the universe looked like, what the nebula looked like, what were they doing to form and how they were creating stars and things of that nature. This is why they call Noot the cow goddess. They call it a cow goddess because we live in the Milky Way. But we're gonna keep it moving.
There are several of these giant towers in the Eagle Nebula, 3 of which have been called the Pillars of Creation. Stars are forming at their tips. Eventually, though, the light from the massive stars will win, zapping away at the structures, dissolving them. There's also some very hot gas in the nebula that might be the result of a star that has already exploded. If so, then the pillars really don't have long to live. In a few thousand years, they won't be eroded away. They'll be blasted away. In a lot of nebulae, there's no sharp edge. They just kind of fade away. Sometimes that's because the gas thins out, so there's not enough stuff there to get lit and see. Other times it's because there's just one or maybe a few stars lighting up the whole cloud, and at some distance from them the starlight fades and can't illuminate the gas anymore. But sometimes nebulae do have sharp edges. That usually happens when a gas cloud is expanding, like in a planetary nebula or supernova. The gas slams into the much thinner gas that is strewn between the stars, what we call the interstellar medium. The expanding gas piles up like snow in a snowplow, getting denser and glowing more brightly. Gas inside a nebula can be in turmoil, too. Winds from stars compress the gas. Shockwaves form when stars explode and when they're born. These can create lovely sheets, tendrils, and filaments in nebulae as well. All of these factors can come together to create great beauty. Not too far from the Orion Nebula in the sky is another dark nebula, superposed on a bright emission nebula. By coincidence, the dense dark material is shaped like a gigantic chess piece, and it's called the Horsehead Nebula. It's being eroded by a star called Sigma Orionis off the top of the frame here, and that's also making the gas behind it glow in that sharp ridge. One of my favorite nebulae in the sky is Barnard's Loop, a huge arc of material that's formed either by the expanding gas from supernovae or the winds of all the massive stars being born in the Orion complex. It's also the outer edge of a huge bubble surrounding a substantial amount of real estate in the constellation Orion. In this image, you can see both the Orion and the Horsehead Nebulae. The loop is so big, you could fit 25 full moons across it. One more thing. I've been talking about bright and dark nebulae, but that's an old-fashioned way of thinking of them. I've also mentioned that infrared light can get through them, but remember from episode 24 that the kind of light an object gives off depends on its temperature. Clouds of dust that look dark to the human eye are actually glowing if you observe them in the far infrared, while outside the colors our eyes can detect. But we have telescopes that can see at these much longer wavelengths. In Orion, there's a reflection nebula called M78. Between M78 and Earth are long filaments of very cold and dark dust, blocking the light from the reflection nebula behind and looking like dark rivers running through it. But when you use a telescope that can see light with a wavelength of a millimeter or so, that dust glows brightly, threading through M78 like ribbons of fire. Like so much else in life, what you see really depends on how you see it. If there's a life lesson there, feel free to take it. Today you learned that nebulae are clouds of gas and dust in space. They can glow on their own or reflect light from nearby stars. When they glow, it's usually predominantly red from hydrogen and green from oxygen. And when they reflect and scatter light, it's from massive hot stars, so they look blue. Stars are born in some nebulae and create new ones as they die. Some nebulae are small and dense, others can be dozens or hundreds of light years across. Also, they're incredibly beautiful. Crash Course Astronomy is produced in association with PBS Digital Studios.
Alright, so just shows you guys, what a nebula is, right? So I hope you guys understand that Noot. Let's go back to the goddess Noot real quick. Give me 1 second so that we can just for memory purposes, can you guys see that? Let me know if you see that, Karen. Alright, so as we learned just now, that Noot is the goddess of one of the ones who bore the gods. You understand what I'm saying? She she's the one who birthed stars. As you can see in her body, embedded in her body are the stars. She also helped to create the planets and the satellites. All of these different gods in here were a result of her creation. All right, so we now see her role in the birth of the sun. Look, because of her role in the rebirth of the sun, but we know that she actually birthed the sun. All right, let's go to what a galaxy is. You see what a galaxy is right there, Ken? All right, so let's go. This is the etymology of the word galaxy. From late 14th century, from French galaxie, or directly from late Latin galaxius, the Milky Way, as a feature in the night sky. Here we go with the night sky. Again, she's the sky goddess. She is the galaxy. She is the nebula before the galaxy is actually formed. All right. Greek galaxius and the galaxius, kliklos, literally milky circle. That's what she is. She's forming a circle. She's forming what is perceived to be a semicircle hovering over her creations. All right. We go back to the etymology of the word galaxy. All right. From gala, from milk, because she's the cow goddess. This is where we get the milk from. All right. So I hope you guys see the connection between Noot and our particular galaxy. All right. So now we're gonna get into how Noone views her. All right, give me 1 second. Let me get this set up real quick. You want to say anything quick, Ken, or you enjoying the show so far? What's going on? You guys understanding where this Noot thing's coming from?
No, you cooking them up with the scientific evidence, and most of the people that so-called know things, they don't know this because the information been so mixed up, and evolution just really brought everything down. So a lot of them don't even know that. It's like I said before in my video, it's looked at as a story and as a myth. And but I do know that they call Hathor the Milky Way. So they, like I said before, they was close, but they're not. They don't have the actual facts. But you're doing good, Ken. I'm gonna hold off till what I got to say after you do what you got to do.
All right, cool. So let me know if you see this screen share. It's from the Nature books. See that screen share, Ken? All right, cool. This is from the Nature. Speaking about the universes. All right. We're gonna skip down to this particular number 38. Listen to reason. The gestation period of universes indeed lasts 18 million years, from point 3 south on the smack circular order to point 6 east on the same circle. This paragraph shows demonstrations at shapes 8 and 9 depicting the gigantic black ball hole and the formation of the brain core of Alpha Star, plus how the Alpha Star grows and forms the colossal universe nebula, also called the universe water ball. Matter invades the vacuum black ball hole with a counterclockwise turning motion. First, the brain core of the Alpha Star is formulated indeed by brain newts and their energy reason. using the highest quality of matter. The brain core, the center of the alpha star, who is the center and controlling star of a universe, as well as the first star of a universe and brightest star of the universe, grows a body for itself as it rotates. The body gets bigger and bigger and grows much bigger than the vacuum black ball hole that started the brain core spinning. The growth of matter by the rotating brain core and energy non-reason continues until the ability and capacity of the brain core to attract matter for growth cease to be effective and magnetic. Now the gigantic brain core, now the gigantic brain core, now brain of the huge nebula, has formulated and formed an incredible immense nebula called by universe science the universe water ball. As time passes, the universe water ball condenses, contracts, decreases in size as it settles in and matures for reproduction. Let it be remembered always and let it be known. Listen to reason. Shapes 8 and 9 in paragraph 38 of this topic depict the black ball hole, which is beginning of the universe of nature after the matter of nature has been impregnated. Shapes 8 and 9 also demonstrate the germination, assistance in conception, origin, and development of matter by darkness of blackness of vacuum. Now, shape 10 in the paragraph illustrates the enormous nebula at full size before it condenses and matures for reproduction as given in shape 11 of this paragraph. The hydrosphere shown here is the human-like state condition of matter that exists between and among the infinite universes of nature, but the hydrosphere is not primordial chaos because it has been screened by brain roots and their energy non-reason for growth of universes, and does have definite form like balls of air bubbles called universes and sooniverses, indeed scattered throughout all infinite absolute nature, and surely its hydrosphere. Let it be remembered always and be known. Now here's where we're going to find out in Noone science who Noot is. Listen to reason. Of course, the geometric figures that are shown in this topic concerning universes are bisections of universe forms with the cut section facing the reader. The brain core in the center of the original water ball nebula and its energy non-reason also cause other smaller brain cores to formulate and grow bodies for themselves on the outer surface of the first nebula. After smaller nebulas reproduced by the original nebula formulate and finish developing, they loosen up and are spun off by the mother nebula, the original nebula. This is who Noot is in Noone science. She is the mother nebula, the one who creates stars, where stars are born from. You understand what I'm saying? It's the same thing as Noot in ancient Egypt. She is the one that created the stars, the sun. You guys see it here? This is some illustrations that Afro-Unu drew and knew of. I'm going to continue reading as shown in paragraph by shape 12. And this nebula reproduction continues until only enough matter formula is left for the body of the brain core of the original and supreme alpha star. In turn, the revolving smaller nebulas, water balls, also reproduce, but their procreations are the true stars. The suns, in turn, reproduce the planets. You guys see this? And the planets reproduce the satellites by the help of their suns, making the creation of the universe of nature a chain reaction of formations, developments, and growth by the brain roots and non-reason of almighty absolute nature. Most stars in their systems turn counterclockwise, the turn of order, and those who do turn in a clockwise the turn of chaos direction do so for universe balancing purposes, because opposites in nature balance persons, places, and things. Let it be remembered always, and let it be remembered always well. So you guys see that this particular that Noot is the mother nebula. She's the one that helps to create the stars, as we see in the other figures that I showed you before. So now Nawapians are saying that Noot is brain roots. Here's where I'm going to shut this whole thing down once and for all and forever. Let's see. Now we know that Noot is what? The one who creates stars, which means this is a gigantic nebula. Let's look at the word gigantic. I want you guys to look at the word gigantic, depicting the gigantic black ball hole. I want you guys to see that. This is a colossal, look at the word here, colossal universe nebula. Colossal, meaning big, meaning you can see it with your naked eyes. You can actually see a nebula, meaning that you will actually see Noot. Alright? Now let's go to what brain roots are, because the Nawapians feel as if they know what they're talking about. But who knows better than the Noonie themselves? Kim, can you see that? Brain roots of nature. Alright. So here we go. I'm gonna skip down real quick to number 42. Listen to reason. Brain roots are neither, look at this, macroscopic nor microscopic, meaning they can neither be seen. Important word here. They can neither be seen with the naked eyes nor with a telescope. So, in turn, nebulas can be seen with telescopes. They've been viewing these things with telescopes. We just watched a video where they've been viewing nebulas with telescopes. Noot, which are nebulas, can be seen with a telescope. Brain roots cannot be seen at all. Look at what it tells you here. I'm going to read the whole paragraph. Listen to reason. Brain roots are neither macroscopic nor microscopic, meaning they can neither be seen with the naked eyes nor with the microscope, but one can taste them, hear them, smell them, feel them, see them in a dream or vision. When one eats, he or she tastes brain roots. When one receives a sound, he or she is hearing brain roots. When a person detects an aroma, he smells brain roots. And using brain, the nerves thereof, to do so. When a person experiences emotions, as in the case of spirit beings bringing the nervous system to ecstasy or sex intercourse, bringing the excitement of orgasm, he and she feel the meltdown of active brain roots. When a person sees figures, forms, and images in a dream or vision, he sees brain roots melting down into configurations and mental words. Although all brain roots are the same everywhere in all matter, what in fact causes the differences in their creations or growths and sounds, smells, feelings, tastes, and colors by sight, as in dreams and visions, are the very quality and kind of matter that they are vibrating or melting down in. When brain roots melt down, they become mind and reason, that is, thinking and creative energy. Therefore, they create and are taste, sound, smell, feeling, and subconscious sight in the form of dreams and visions, as well as growth, creations, and thoughts. Let it be remembered always, and let it be known. So let it be known that brain roots are not Noot from ancient Egypt, because they are absolutely the furthest opposites that you can find. Because guess what? Nebulas are light years in size compared to brain newts that you can't even see with a telescope or a microscope or anything like that. So guess what? Nuwaubians basically put two opposites together because they sounded the same. Noot and Noot. Noot meaning N-U-T from Egypt is not the same as brain newts, N-O-O-T. It's not the same thing. So I just shut that down in one whole whop. So that's my presentation for the night. I hope that you guys learned that Noot is definitely the nebula which creates stars. The Caucasians stole that from us, told us that it's mythology when it was actually an actual fact. When we were drawing these things on Egypt, this is not mythology, this is not paganism, this is none of those things. These were actual facts that were being written on the wall in a symbolic form. But it was a perfect symbolic form because guess what? Women birth the future of universes, of races, and things of that nature. So our ancestors understood that these nebulas would in turn be women or be depicted as a female energy that creates sons. You understand? And she's impregnated by the male factors of space or vacuum. I'm going to do another presentation on what space is because scientists are trying to figure out what space is. But the simple term for what space is just everything that's not matter. So wherever matter is, space is. Because space is the container for matter. So everywhere they cannot detect matter is space. Because they're going to tell you that they don't know what space is. They just know that it's a vacuum, which means that it causes things to move. Our galaxy moves because of space. It causes it to rotate. Alright? So that'll be my presentation. I know that the Ken Noone probably has something to add to that. So I hope you guys were very well informed of what brain newts are and what Noot is in ancient Egypt. And that's my time.
That was excellent, Ken. And right to the point. You know, I'm gonna chop and screw this particular class up and add some more stuff to it. Because I think that anything else is not gonna do no justice tonight. I'm glad that you came through and showed Noone as a science, and that also people need to stop thinking that the information can't be found unless you are part of some secret society, because that's not true. A-Noot already said that most of the mysteries and the secrets that they have are not even that mysterious. Right, it's not even that mysterious. It's not even that deep. When they go through all of those things they go through to get those things that's already known, and we just showed and proved that the ancients knew exactly what the universe is, as like they say, as above so below, but it actually as below as above, because there's no way you can be able to know these things if you didn't study self. Like they said, know thyself, then you would know that. So what's out there is